This conference will now be recorded.
So what you're seeing here, and I'll talk to you about a couple of different things in this case. I'm going to switch over to the devices. And what you're seeing here is a solution. It's a business intelligence tool that we use. This is looking at a MIF. This is an example of a machines in field at a customer. So right now we're looking at about 216 devices, and we've got 58 different models of device. As you can see here. And what we like to do, especially when it comes to that hardware device, is we like to analyze, the age of the device. Are they being overutilized or underutilized? We can pick up a bunch of different metrics about those devices from the device itself. Every device has a management information base. We can pick that up over SNMP, and we can take a look at a couple of different areas of those devices. And I'll walk you through a little bit of that just to show you what we've got here in this case. So as I said, I've got 216 devices. I've got 58 unique models. In this environment, it is 100% HP. The average age of these printers is just about 5 years. So they're getting kind of old now. And you can see this is a direct correlation to the amount of notifications that have come out of the system, whether they require toner or service. So the system I'm talking about will actually break down and provide notifications about what's going on in the environment when it comes to uptime. So in this case, this particular customer's received 14 separate notifications, and that could be because of low toner. It could be because the device needs service, however we want to set it up. It's not a lot, but it equals out to, in this case, 0.06 alerts per device, which is okay. That's not a huge amount, but it's pretty decent in this case. But what you'll see here is that we've got a couple of different things. We've got a total monthly mono count as well as a total color count. And we're seeing what happens in this environment on a month-over-month basis. But we also break it down by function. And you can see here, this customer is a little bit of an off case because majority of what they're doing is print at 55%, fax is at 40%, and scan is at just a scant 11%. So they're not doing a lot of copying, but they are doing quite a bit of printing in this environment. If I scroll down here, and I'm just going to scroll past a couple, and I'll show you this matrix here. What we can provide for you is just a little bit of a matrix of every single model. So we've got a manufacturer, we've got the model, the serial number, and in the middle here, we've got what's called an Mps Certification Score. And essentially what that means is how old is the device, how well does it report information that you can do things like automatically supply them with toner or come up with a proactive servicing on them. In this environment, they're rated, most of the devices are rated at a 5, which is very good, which means that these devices are very serviceable by just about anyone. But you'll see here at the top, there are 2 that are rated at a 1, and a lot of that weight has to go to how old those devices are, because these 2 devices are actually 7 years in age. On top of that, we can show you the speeds and feeds, what the page per minute is of each device, and what the monthly mono count and color count is on each device. So it gives you a good idea, breakdown on every single printer that you have in your environment and how it works. If I scroll up here for a second, I'll show you a couple of other things about this. When I look at these counts by device function, it always calls into the question, well, this print volume here, which is 55% of the output, what are end users doing? And as you said, you are getting some summary information about color and black and white and things like that. But we can actually drill down into this a little bit further. So I'm going to bring you over to this other one here, which was originally what I had up. This is in conjunction with the software that we build called Infinite User Management. It is very similar to the way PaperCut works. However, it does pick up a lot more information, as you can see here. And I'll take you through some of the metrics of stuff that we could take a look at. So in this case, we're actually, it's a sample one. We did a bit of an assessment on here. So we tracked this for 2 months or 53 business days of printing. Over those course of those 2 months, we tracked 224 users, and those 224 users click print 67,000 times, which produced 234,000 pages of paper. The average job size of every single print job was just about 3.5, which, to be honest, falls well in line with a lot of the industry standards out there. This is a good one to say, yeah, this company, all the documents they're producing of average size, so that falls in line. But what doesn't fall in line is this here, web and email printing in color. Now, typically in most environments, when we do these types of assessments, when we look at what's going on a workflow basis, we usually see this number here come in about 10 to 15%. In this case, we're looking at a 20%. And what that means is if you're in a browser, so if you're in Google Chrome, Firefox, Safari, or if you're in your email system like Outlook, how much of that's coming out in color? And in this environment here, 20% of that is appearing out in color. Now, when I scroll down here, I can show you a couple other things. I've got pages by application, so I know what applications they're in. Oh, by the way, the top one here, that's Adobe. So when people are actually in a PDF and they're clicking print on those, you can see here on the left-hand side, I've got things like top 10 users, as well as top 10 users by color page volume. Now, when I scroll down here, I've got a couple of other pieces of information. I've got things like job to job size. Now, what that means is when I'm clicking print, how many pages are in each print job and how many times am I clicking it? So in this case here, job to job size, in the 1 through 3 page category, I'm clicking print 82% of the time. So that's a lot of frequency there, right? It happens a lot. But when I compare it to the pie chart down below, which is pages to job size, what you'll see here is the 1 to 3 page category is only 40% of the output. So out of those hundreds of thousands of pages that are being produced here, only 89,000 pages are from the 1 to 3 page category, but yet customers and users are actually printing this 82% of the time. So it gives you an idea that there's a lot of the time there's what I like to call the job disconnect. There's a disconnect between actually clicking print and the paper coming out. But I'll show you this really neat thing, and this is something that that we can identify in just about any environment. So as I hover over this little black feature pops up that shows me a couple things, and you can see I'm just hovering over the 50+ page jobs. And in this case, it's about 300 print jobs. So only 300 times out of 67,000, a user clicked print of a job over 50 pages. And I just clicked into it to filter out this information to show you what that looks like. So I'll scroll up here, and you can see I've been tracking for about 44 days. I've tracked a total of 78 users. There's only 300 print jobs, but the average print job spikes to 94 pages. Or sorry, 94 pages per document. This represents 28,000 pages in total output. I'll go back down to my pie charts here, and you'll see that even though I've filtered out the entire system in 50+ page jobs, only 13% of that was printed on both sides of the page. So I look here, and I could say, hey, wait a second. There is 24,000 pages of these large jobs that were produced over 50 pages that could have been duplexed. There's an optimization. And at 25,000 pages here, you're looking at just about 5 boxes of paper every 2 months that they could eliminate from ordering. In fact, that's how much is taken up on those single-sided ones. So you cut that in half, you could eliminate easily 3 boxes of paper every 60 days. What we can also do is we can actually break this down. If we average out the cost per page in these environments, we can break down how much is costing you per user in this case on an average basis. So right now I've got this set up at an average of about a penny and a half mono and 6 cents color per page. And right now in this environment, and I'm still stuck in my 50 plus pages here, so bear with me, I'm going to unfilter that. You'll see this update. It's about $34 an employee. So you can imagine in this environment, it's pretty expensive. But I can see a whole bunch of other pieces of data in here. I can see things like month over month printing. I can see if end users are printing through a network share, directly to a printer, or local. And I can even see what models, or if I wanted to drill through to this and take a look at the details, I could see what printers people are using the most. So I've got a full information in here in a nice interactive dashboard that you can actually drill into and see all this information. Let me show you another example of this. So as I stated before, web and emails printed in color is 20%. If I take a look at Outlook, I'm going to drill into this Outlook piece here. I noticed that I got 173 users that printed off 4,900 emails, and those emails had a 30% color output. So out of the 8,000 pages that were produced from email over the course of this assessment, 30% of those pages were in full color. Those are prime areas that we can come in and come up with a reduction strategy. And I'll show you, here's what we can do with this information. So if I go into this secondary tab here, this is what's called the what if analysis. And what this allows us to do is this allows us to actually future model what we're seeing. So we know in this environment, based on that penny and a half, 6 cents, is costing an average of $34.47 per user. They're spending about $7,700. If we were to increase their duplexing, for example, what would that look like tomorrow? And we know that they're not duplexing a lot, but if we could say to this customer, listen, if you can increase your duplexing by 50%, just 50%, and it may be a targeted thing, it may not be, but on a generalized 50%, I can save you 16,000 pages from being produced. That's going to reduce your overall spend by 1% just by eliminating the cost of that buying those boxes of paper. If I took a look at that web and email color, that color output, I said, look, I know you're doing 20%, but what if we could make that 10%? What if we could cut that in half? What would that look like tomorrow? And in this case, we're taking that user from $34 down to 33 cents, and we're saving it on average of about 4%. So it's quite a bit. Now, on top of that, this system that we're talking about, the products sets that we're talking about, has a very robust way of managing how users do that output. Has a very robust way of actually looking at that input. And typically, what we see when we put this solution into a customer's environment, we'll see about a 10 to 15% reduction in overall spend. And at this point, by doing a couple of very simple control methods, we're actually saving a pretty significant amount. We saved off about 14%. We've reduced paper consumption by almost 40,000 pages. That can be a lot. Now, how we do this is with our Infinite User Management product. And I'll just log in here, and I'll show you what this looks like. So this is a very different application. This system here is a client-based app. So I've got a little desktop application that is essentially an activity tracker. So it doesn't matter whether a printer is connected through a print server, doesn't matter where the end user is printing directly to a printer, or if they've got a USB attached device, we're going to track it all right from their desktop. We can even track people when they're not connected to the network. We can cache the information locally and then put it back into this system when they do attach to the network. So it gives them a little bit of information. I'm going to go into the job accounting here, and I'll show you what that job information looks like. So in this case, every time an end user hits print, we're tracking 35 to 40 bits of information. In this case, I've actually added in a couple of fields that I pulled in from AD. One of them is the user account. The other one is a printer account. So as you can see here, I know what department that person is in, as well as what printer they're printing to. I can see if it's an 8.5 by 11 or if it's a different paper size. Is it a color document or not? Was it duplexed? How many mono pages and how many color pages are printed? And we'll even detect mono and color within the single print job, as you can see with this one. I don't know, time of day and a cost. So if I actually put in the costing of this, I can summarize by print job, by user, by department, however it goes. The reporting itself is pretty robust. And as you can see here, I've got a couple of dozen scheduled reports. All of these reports are going out to individuals. So they're not necessarily me looking at them, but they are going out to individuals at different intervals. We have almost 100 different pre-canned reports that you can configure and filter down to whatever you need to. So if you wanted to see things like top applications or secure documents, or what your printer volumes are, what your user volumes are, or better yet, the total printing breakdown of every single print job, like I showed you in those pie charts, we can have those assembled and delivered to anyone within your environment. We can build these reports, and I'm just going to go into a bit of a composite report here where I've got a couple of them set up. But I can send this out via email. I can send this out by an FTP site, or I can do a web upload of these print jobs to just about anywhere. And this allows you to have some really good flexibility in how you want to look at the data that we're collecting. Now, I know I've been talking a little bit, quite a bit here. Any questions on that? What do you think of it so far?
No questions. Looks pretty interesting.
Now, on top of this, and I think this is where some of the differentiators, as you saw in with the dashboard itself, we do have a couple of things that that we can look at when it comes to making recommendations to input or impact the environment. In this system itself, we have what are called rules. Now, rules are behavior messaging. So as you can see, I've got one here set up for Chrome. And in this case here, it's just going to simply say if the application name contains Chrome and the color page count is greater than 0, I'm going to display a message and say, why are you printing from Chrome? And what that looks like is pretty simple. So if I hit File Print on this screen here, I'll actually get a pop-up on my desktop. Bear with me here. I'm going to go through a HP Universal Print Driver. And it's going to say, at this point, why are you printing this in Chrome? Do you really want to print this? And there's my little pop-up there. So from here, I can hit yes, I want to print this anyways, or I'm going to hit no, I didn't mean to print that. And if I hit no on that, it actually will reflect through the reporting system. So I will know how much of this I'm actually doing. And I'll show you this here. This is what's called a rule statistic report. So if I build this, on any given basis, it'll show me how many people have actually clicked through the rules or how many jobs have actually been stopped by those rules. And it's a great way to say, okay, look, I know I've got rules set up. I know I've got a parameter set up. How exactly am I going to control this? And as you can see here, because of those rules that I've set up, I've had 11 jobs canceled. It eliminated a total of 370 pages. This has saved me $31 just by stopping those types of print jobs from printing. So it gives you a whole bunch of parameters, and the rules themselves, you can do about 88 million combinations of them. So it doesn't necessarily need to be around one application. You could set up this rule to say, okay, well, maybe the marketing team is allowed to print from Chrome in color, but maybe we'll add in a condition here that says the user group, for example, is a specific set of group of users. So someone like the sales team isn't allowed to print color. We're able to do that. On the MFPs themselves, we can install applications that would allow you to control and identify who's using those devices on the walk-up side. This system does have a full secure print functionality, so you can do your current pull print system as well. all in all, it all ties back to being able to take a look at all the information you have and being able to impact that as you see fit. The good part about this is that we can consult you and be able to help you and advise you on what rules make sense. So it's not stopping people from printing, but it is impacting and making sure that people, not everyone can print to the way that they want to. In these cases, what we typically see a lot of is we do see a lot of the non-business type printing going away. So you will see things like people printing off their recipes from recipe.com, or any type of non-business type printing just simply disappears when end users realize that they're being tracked for this. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to show you today. As you can see, it is pretty comprehensive in how we can do this and how we can look at not just the devices, but the user workflow and how it actually works. Any questions on anything you saw?
A lot to digest.
Yeah, there's a lot. When you say 88 million combinations, can you give me just maybe a few more examples?
Sure. So I'll give you one. General Dynamics uses this software, and what they saw was the big selling point was around sensitive documents. And in this point, what they decided to control was something very simple. So if the document title contained the word resume, what would happen at that point was the end user wouldn't get a pop-up. They wouldn't be notified on it. But the system itself would actually send an email out to HR department with an email saying someone's printed off a resume, and it'll give the person's details. You might want to go address it. Now, obviously, that's a little heavy-handed, but it's what they saw as absolutely a necessary one. We've got quite a few school districts that use this. One school district that's local to me a couple of years ago, actually quite a few years ago, they actually implemented a rule based on specific web URLs. And all those web URLs that they put in there as a control parameter were because they found there was a lot of the students who were printing off Justin Bieber photos in the class labs. So they eliminated it. They said, hey, you're no longer allowed to print off Justin Bieber photos.
Oh.
Paul is in Canada, by the way, just FYI.
So, it doesn't matter. Anything you want to do, you can do. It's a very simple and very flexible way of actually creating those behavior modifications. For example, if you wanted to say, hey, look, we're shut down on Sundays because we got to do network reboots. So at this point, no one's allowed to print on Sundays. Or if you wanted to say, maybe a time of day, you're not allowed to print after a certain time. Maybe it is a secure status. So if secure is not set for a document, so that means it's not going through let's say you've got something like a resume. Let's say HR is printing off resumes because you're hiring people and they want to print it off. If it's not going through a secure printer, you can actually say, hey, this is not a secure document. We recommend you printing this through the secure queue. So you don't actually have to secure everything. Or maybe it is one of those things where you say, we recommend you print this however you need to. You can do just about anything.
So what about, and this is probably easy, but anytime someone they're sending a print job that's greater than 50 pages, have them pop up a message.
Absolutely. So if I did, and you could do this in specific. So if you wanted to do total page count, you can do that. If you wanted to specifically focus on color or mono, you can do that as well. Not only that, but we'll also track the copies within a print job. So you can do this on the original print job. So, hey, listen, total pages is greater than 50 pages on the original one. But what if that end user cuts it up into 10-page documents and reprints it 5 times? In that case, we can use this, what we call units, and you can say is greater than a specific amount of units. Because with every single print driver, so if I hit print on this, I can make reprints of every print job. So in this case, I could say, well, let's make 9 copies of this 1-page job. We could put up a pop-up based on the copies, not just the size of the original document. I'll show you on the user, and let me ask you this: Are you tracking all your users by Active Directory? Do you have everyone in AD?
Yes.
How's your structure set up? Is it set up with organizational units?
Yes.
Okay. We can do a sync with AD, and I'll just show you here on our side. I don't have AD set up on mine, but I can bring people in by organizational units. I can bring them in by security groups, or even a combination of both. I can bring them in from multiple domains. And what that'll do is that'll mirror your AD structure, and it'll group people accordingly. So in those groups, and you can even nest those groups. So I'll just show you on my grouping side. I got a bunch of users here. So Calgary is our head office. Within that head office, I'll get sales. And begrudgingly, I've nested accounting underneath the sales department. So what that means is I can base any reporting, any rules on those groups. If you want to do it on an individual, you can do it on an individual. But because we can sync up with AD, if you ever remove someone, we can remove them out of the system. If they ever move a department, they'll move along in here because we're syncing with AD. So at that point, you're only looking at one point of management, which is your Active Directory side. And that'll filter down through everything in here, including the reporting. So I can set up a report. Oh, let me just hit close on that. I'll hit edit on this. So I can set up that report. Maybe it is a physical location. Maybe it is a group. And maybe I've got an additional one, which is what I call printer groups. So if I wanted to say, show me anyone who's in North Reading, Connecticut, who's in the sales group, who printed to printer school number 2. I could change the date range if I need to. So it gives you a whole ton of different flexibilities. And the beauty of this is it's all in one package. It's not something you have to go outside and build an SQL script over. It's very simple to do right through the user interface.
I guess another example would be, like you mentioned, well, there's people printing jobs that are more than 50 pages and they're not doing duplexing. Is there a way to have a pop-up and say, hey, you're setting this is not duplexed? Something like that. I mean, that's probably...
Yep, that's quite easy. So in a duplex, I'll just go back into the sensitive one just because I've got it set up here, and let me just reroute this one. So if you said, let's go total page count is greater than 25 pages. And we'll add in a, let's say the driver, the job duplex setting is not set. Then get a pop up and say, please duplex this print job. And you can set this up with say, hey, maybe there's a specific group of users that we're going to focus in on. So maybe it's sales has to duplex everything and accounting doesn't. Or maybe it is, maybe there's a couple other things that you want to do. Maybe it's a specific printer they're printing to. Or better yet, there's a couple other ones you can say. Maybe it's the job origin is coming from one of these systems. Like, for example, maybe it's coming from a cloud print, or it's coming from iOS, for example. So it gives you a whole bunch of freedom on how you want to create those rules. Typically, what we see in any given environment is this system can be deployed out silently. So we got a benchmark of what's going on. And we'll run that for a period of time. We load that data into Insight, and then from there, we make those recommendations. Here's what we recommend you doing, simply because you want to make sure that some of those rules are low impact when an end user hits print, but it's high impact on the paper volume. At that point, we implement those rules, we track for another 30 days, and we say, okay, are these rules being effective or not? And we can optimize that on an ongoing basis.
And you said this is an agent that,
right there. No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, this is an agent that would need to be installed on each client's computer?
That's right. It's a small 10 megabyte MSI file. You can deploy it through AD, or if you're using anything else like a managed engine or Kaseya, you can quite easily put this out on the system itself. That gives you the freedom to say, okay, it doesn't matter. I don't have to change the way my print drivers are. I don't have to change the way my print servers are behaving. If anyone wants to print directly to the printer, they have the freedom to do so.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Sorry, Greg, you were going to say
something as well? Greg Briscoe?
Oh yeah, no, Paul hit on it.
Okay. I'd add a question as well. Earlier this week, Greg Benson and I were talking about tracking the consumables, just so like you could tell how long each toner cartridge would last, etc. And Paul, you had mentioned ICE as a way to track that. Would you mind expanding upon that?
Sure. So ICE is a different engine. This is sort of a meter collection tool. It is a small 10 megabyte app that will do an SNMP scan of the environment itself. Whoops, I just logged in with the wrong credentials. Bear with me here. So if I go into this system here, you can see here that I've got every single printer in my environment. These are all both on the network and not on the network. You'll see I've got a couple of locally attached devices showing up here. What I can do here is I can go in. So for example, if I go into my one of my HPs, I'll go into this LaserJet 700. You can see here I've got every single counter and sub counter. But if I go to the supplies tab, first thing you'll notice is that I'm actually tracking what day these devices are going to run out of toner. I can see when that toner cartridge was installed, how many pages have been output from each cartridge. But if I go into my notification history here, I can set up notifications that show me when this cartridge goes low, as well as when it gets changed. So by that point, we can actually track all the information on toner cartridge changes to say how many times and how frequently we're changing cartridges for every single device.
Very cool.
Beautiful. A great tool.
Good stuff. Well, hey guys, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to cut this off because I do have another meeting coming up in the next 5 minutes here that I gotta get ready for. But I appreciate your time. And what I can do, gentlemen, is we can send out some documentation, some security and technical overview documentation on all the products you saw today. You can feel free to review those and discuss next steps from there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate the help.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
So long.
Okay, so I guess the logical next step is